excuse, Michael, for when you get home and your mom gets that bill.
Oh, I'm not gonna have a credit card. Or if I did, I would at least have money on it.
See, that's the thing. A lot of the students think what you're thinking right there. Credit cards don't have money on them.
I know you have to pay it off. That's what I'm saying. Like as long as I have the money to pay for it, I would.
Okay, honestly, in my opinion, they're really worthless because if you don't have the money to buy the thing you're buying, then you won't have the money to pay it off.
Yeah, but you
It's
still,
gonna be the same
with
amount.
credit though, you still need like good credit for certain things. Like, good credit helps with stuff.
Sometimes it's helpful. It's not bad to have credit cards and to be able to build up your credit.
Depends how you
Because
use
you
it.
can't always pay cash for everything. All right, you're probably not going to go out and buy a house with cash. Probably not going to go out and if you're actually going to buy a newer car, you're probably not going to go out and pay for it with cash. And there's certain things, if you're,
As long as you have a bank account, you can just take it direct that way.
but if you don't have that much in your bank account.
Well, if you have a job.
So if you go out and you're buying a house,
If you have a job.
and you buy this house that's $80,000, you got that much in your bank account.
Can't you only like take out like $10,000 without the FBI looking into it and stuff?
Yeah, Watch too many movies.
Then who looks into it?
The bank, the banking system, and then you're watching too many drug movies. Where it's a money laundering
Breaking Bad.
thing. Well, that's what they did. Well, they were
Money laundering.
They were. That's why they look at stuff like that.
I mean, if you think about it, it's like, oh man, never mind.
Think about what would
Like it's really smart.
somebody like
really illegal.
Donald Trump, or Ted Turner, or these big businessmen, if every time they drew out $10,000, the FBI was looking into them.
But they know they're multi-billionaires, and that's
Does it?
like just some random dude out in the middle of nowhere. It's like, oh,
So what I'm telling you is
that's
don't
funny.
believe everything that the movies say that it's.
I mean, they're clearly billionaires. Everybody knows they don't need $10,000.
So
if anything, they're gonna take out like $10 million.
So there's plenty of people who run drugs and stuff that are millionaires also. Do they just stop looking into them then? Because
I wasn't talking about that.
I know, but I'm saying it's the same setup, isn't it? If they're already millionaires, but they got there because they're selling drugs, they're still going to look at them the same because they're still drawing out that same amount of money here and there or whatever.
I know, but I wasn't even talking about anything like drug related. I was just talking about.
I know. I just brought that up just because
It's out there.
that's usually
Oh,
what
yeah.
that's usually what they look into that excess money for is
Yeah.
gambling, some kind of illegal gambling, some kind of illegal something.
Like that movie 21 where he's like gambling and everything, makes like 300 grand and gets it all taken away. And then makes it all back. And then gets it taken away and steals it back. Oh, it's crazy.
All right, some things with the credit card charge accounts.
That's such a good movie.
Credit card is a card authorizing purchases on credit. The credit card that I have right now, I think the interest rate on it, I think it's went up to about 16%. All right, and we'll talk about that here in a couple minutes. That's part of the finance charge. That's the interest charged by a credit card for the money that you owe them. Credit cards are good things to have sometimes, just sort of as a safety net. All right, so the other day my water heater went out, and I needed a way to make it so that I could have hot water, and I didn't have the cash, and it was late at night, and I couldn't get the cash, enough cash for the stuff that I needed. So it was good to have a credit card. All right. So not always is it just because you want to blow money. It's a good thing to have to protect yourself. And if you know on ATMs, if you go to an ATM, even though there might be money in my account, if it's late at night and the bank's not open, how much money can I draw out?
Why not that much?
$200 is the limit. All right. So most places, and I think maybe that's went up here in the last couple of years, but that's what it always was in the past. $200 is the limit that ATM will let you draw out.
Well, can't you just like put your card in a second time?
It denies you after that.
What if I get a credit card and I don't use it, would I still get credit off of it? Do I
That's
have
it.
to actually use it?
That's the next thing I'm getting ready to say. My mom was a stickler. She had 2 or 3 credit cards, and the credit card companies didn't like her, and they would cancel her credit cards all the time because she was very, very strict about if she put something on her credit card, at the end of the month, she paid it off. Well, if you have somebody like that, then guess how much money the credit card company makes off of you?
None.
Nothing. And they didn't like her, so there was, I remember, it's been probably 20 years ago, I remember sitting there and one of the credit cards, she called one of the credit card companies and said, what's going on with my credit card? It doesn't work anymore. And they said, we canceled it. And she said, I've had this credit card for 20-some years. Why did you cancel it? And they said, well, let's look back. And they canceled it, even though she'd had the credit card, the same credit card for 20-some years. They canceled her because for that 20 years, she had paid off her bill every month at the end of the month before they could charge her any finance charge. And they were tired of dealing with her because they were losing money on her, sending her statements and everything else throughout that 20 years.
So they can just do that because you're paying, you're doing it the right way?
Yeah.
That's not
It's not the right way to them.
Well, yeah, but.
Yeah, it's not a credit card isn't like something that they have to let you have. That's their business, and if they want you to have one, that's great. If you're gonna, if they look at you and they figure out you've defaulted on 10 other credit cards in the past 5 years, well, you apply for their credit card. You think they're gonna give you one? Probably not.
Why did it take them 20-something years to finally
I don't-
come to that conclusion?
It was, I think it was, they didn't mind her doing it, but then there came a span there where the credit card companies were losing money. So they were trying to save money any way they could. Charge account. With a charge account, you don't see charge accounts near as much as you used to. I know I used to work for Johnson's Excavating that worked out of El Dorado, and he had a charge account with a lot of the businesses, Ace Hardware and everything, where he'd just go in and he would say, I need this, 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 and this, and they'd give it to him, and he wouldn't pay them right then. They would just put it on his bill. You see a lot of this, in the old time movies and stuff where,
Put it on the tab.
put it on the tab, right? So you go in, and that's a charge account where you just have an existing line of credit at a certain business,
People take advantage of that.
and you go in there and you do that. And then a lot of businesses now are not doing that anymore because unless you come through there and you work with them all the time, like if I go down to Eaton, what is it, Supply, Eaton, I think it's Eaton Supply. It's a plumbing place down on 35. If I go down there, you see people come in and out of there all the time that come and get stuff from them all the time, and they have a charge account with them. So that's not something you probably have to worry about too much. You're probably not going to walk into Walmart and they're ever gonna trust you enough where you can just say, yeah, put this one on my tab, I don't have the money on me right now, and walk out with the stuff, they're not gonna do that for you.
So, like, well, I have two questions. One, I know, like, Carmelo's I used to work at, they used to go to Gordon's food service, and they wouldn't pay right then and there's like what that is.
Yeah.
So when do you pay that?
If-
Like, is there a deadline you have? to-
Yeah, most of the companies will. I know when I worked at the convenience store and we would get shipments in, I would have to sign, and then the bill would get sent to the head company people, and they would pay the bill. And it's usually, most companies, they're not gonna make a second delivery or give you a second thing unless you paid off the first thing.
Right.
Is the way it usually works. Now that might be a little different, you might go a couple, 2 or 3 months if you're in good with the company. Now some of them, like, we would get in our Pepsi delivery of Pepsi and all the Pepsi products, and I would sign off on that. We would get in the 7-Up delivery, I had to pay that right then. We didn't have that line of credit with them.
Right.
So, just depends on the setup that they made with the company. An account statement, we've talked about bank statements a bunch. An account statement just is a statement, and that says a bank statement. It probably shouldn't say bank statement, it's just actually the account. It shows the status of your account, including all deposits, to withdrawals from, interest earned, credit to your account. That's what matter of fact, that's stupid. That's what the account statement was when we were doing banking statements. So they didn't change the definition. I should have read that a little better. The account statement for a credit card is going to be a little different because it's going to show how much money you've charged to the credit card account, how much interest there is on the credit card. Some credit cards, and we'll talk about this here in a minute, you can use different ways it might show those.
42.
Credit card uses, different credit card uses. If you go into a store, you could use a credit card to purchase something. Some credit cards will let you do cash advances. That's sort of going down a little bit. You gotta, most credit cards don't have that option on them anymore. So you could just go to a bank or something and say, hey, I want a cash advance on this. And you could also use it to transfer cash from one account to another. Those are different credit card uses. Most normal people just use a credit card for purchases.
How do you do it? What's like a cash transfer? How do you do that with credit card?
See, that's probably something, unless you have some kind of business or something, and you want to transfer a bunch of money from, let's say, Gordon Foods, you owe them, or something, you want to transfer from one to another. I'm not really sure because I've never owned my own business or anything. One thing, maybe a different idea for a cash transfer would be, let's say I have 2 credit cards. And if I have a second credit card and I want to get rid of it because the interest rate's too high. So I could transfer cash from this credit card to this credit card to pay it off, and then now I owe this one. Which in the past I have done that, where maybe I owed a credit card $1,000 and the interest rate got to be like 17, 18, 19, 20% or something. And I said, all right, I'm done with you guys because you just keep jacking up the interest rate on me. And so I transfer it to another credit card that's got a lower interest rate on it. Or, I think we talked a little bit last chapter about something like if you have you go in and you buy something that says 12 months, same as cash. Did we talk about that? Maybe we didn't. 12 months, same as cash, or 36 months, same as cash. You see that? What they're doing is they're giving you a line of credit. You got to be real careful. Listen closely to this. You got to be real careful with this, because they're giving you a line of credit for that 12 months, and they're saying, okay, let's say you buy something, you buy a new sofa and love seat for your living room, and it costs you about $3,200 or something, just making up numbers. So you go in there, you buy this new furniture for your living room, it's $3,200. They have 12 months, same as cash. That means in that 12 months, you don't have to pay any interest. All right, so you're just paying money towards that $3,200. Well, let's say the first month, you pay $100. Second month, you pay $100. Third month, you pay $100, so on, so on, so on. Well, you get down here to the bottom, and let's jack it up. Say instead of $100, let's say you pay $200 each month. Well, 12 times 200 is 2,400. So at this 12th month, you paid off $2,400 of the $3,200. But you haven't paid the whole thing off. So what they will do is they charge you interest on the whole $3,200. So when you get to this limit, that 12-month limit, they go back and they say, okay, even though you paid this already, you got to pay us interest on all that money, because you didn't pay it off before the 12 months was up. So you're not just paying interest on the $1,200, you're paying interest on the whole $3,200. And then what happens with that, I know that we bought stuff on 12 months, same as cash, and got down here to the end. We just paid for our furnace, and it was about $7,000 or $8,000. Put a brand new furnace and everything in our house. So we got to the end of the same as cash deal, which was about 24 months, I think, 2 years. We got to the end of that, and we still owed like $1,000. Well, we took that $1,000 and transferred it to another line of credit so that we wouldn't have to go back and pay the interest on all that other $6,000. Charge account again is just a line of credit for a person, business at a certain store. Finance charge is usually an interest rate, so it's usually a percentage added to the amount owed and not paid off by a due date. Andrew asked about, when do they do that? It's different for every credit card, and that's one of the things. If you get a credit card, you need to watch how are they adding on this interest. Remember when we talked about interest earlier this year, if we had a savings account, it was nice if the interest was added on daily, right? Because that made it more. Well, if you have a credit card, do you want the interest added on daily? No, because that's going to make it more, and that's money you got to pay into them. So it's not money you get this time. So you got to watch and see how they do that interest. Calculating the finance charge. Go ahead and write this down. We're not actually going to do a whole lot with this today. That's actually we're going to get more into it next class. There's many different ways a credit company could calculate the finance charge. Why do you think there's many different ways? How come you think different finance or different credit card companies charge things different ways?
Different types of.
Think about what they're trying to do. They're trying to make money. So Mr. Eversole's got a credit card and he cancels it because the finance charge is getting ridiculous. The next company that he goes to, do they want to charge me the exact same way? Because am I going to keep that credit card then? No. So they want to charge it a different way, and maybe you get confused. Maybe you don't know how to, figure out the finance charge each month. So just like drawing you into a store with different kinds of advertisements, credit card company might do the same thing.
What time do we get out of here?
What?
What time do we get out of here?
Normal time. It's up there on that.
I think it's 42.
42. Is that the time we normally get out of here?
No, we got here already for it.
It's 2 minutes early. It says 12:14.
That's what time lunch gets out. Okay.
Says lunch A goes from 10:37 to 11:07. Block A goes from, oh, that's the other one. All right, so I'm looking. I got it written up there. Screwed. I'm not really sure about this last thing here. When you look at credit cards, there's a way that they do it. And a lot of, if you go buy a car or something, the way they do their interest rates is basically the same thing. They'll do the prime rate. If you ever listen to the news, they'll talk about the prime rate, that the federal government's going to raise the prime rate or lower the prime rate. That was a big deal when President Obama was in office and they were trying to get the economy to settle down, and they were talking about either raising or lowering the prime rate. And you guys probably don't remember because 8 or 9 years ago when he first got in office, they dropped the prime rate way down to like 2 or 3%. And now it's starting to work its way back up. They raise it a little bit here and there, trying to level out the economy. So what credit card companies do is they take prime rate. I think prime rate right now is like 3.25 or something like that. You could look it up and see. That's a set rate. That's for the whole country. Prime rate is what the federal government sets interest rates at. And what a credit card company does is they take prime rate and they add on a certain percentage. I'm thinking that most of them are around 13%. It might be 15%. I don't know. But they'll tell you at the beginning, they'll say prime, our interest rate is prime plus a certain percentage. And if you go in to buy a car from a car dealership, they'll tell you the same thing. Your interest rate's going to be prime plus this. You go in to get a loan from a bank. Let's say you go get a student loan. And you're going to get a private loan from a bank. They're going to tell you, okay, the interest rate on that loan is going to be prime plus a certain percentage. And then what happens is if that prime rate goes up, what happens to your interest rate on your loan? It goes up, right? So that follows along with it, and credit cards do that same thing. And credit cards also, you gotta read the fine print and stuff because they can change their interest rates. And that's what happens a lot. A lot of times you'll have an introductory rate, and it might say for the first year, you get an interest rate of 15%. And then after that first year, your interest rate jumps to 21%. So you gotta read the stuff carefully. One simple way to figure it, each card has a APR, annual percentage rate. We talked about annual percentage rates earlier this year. You find the periodic rate, we talked about that earlier this year. You just take the annual percentage rate divided by how many periods are in a year. So if I had something like monthly, if they were charging me monthly, how many periods would there be in the year? 12. So you take your APR, whatever your APR is, let's say it's 20%, you take that 20% and divide it by 12, and that's going to tell you what percentage you pay per month. The finance charge is the periodic rate. That number you get from there times the balance. Again, we're not going to do a whole lot with this today. Most of it, they're going to tell you what your service charge is. They're going to say, your service charge for this month was $4.82. And then you just add that on to what your bill is. Right, I made up this one just to show what happens with credit cards. How about your calculator so you can help me here? We go in a store and we pay $1.79 for a soda and $1.69 for a bag of chips. Somebody help me out. If we pay that much, how much money are we going to owe the cashier? $3.45. $3.48. $3.48. So that's our bill right now. We pay them with a credit card. All right? So you go in there, you don't have any cash on you, you're off at college, and you go, oh, I got my credit card, and I really want this pop and this bag of chips. So you give them your credit card. And it's got a 17% APR. We don't pay anything for 1 year on that. What can we do to find the interest on that card?
You take the 3.48 times by 0.17, right? And then you take their
What's that give us?
point. You want the whole number or the first three digits?
Yeah, first two. Round up.
Point 59. And you
So about how much?
about 60 cents.
About 60 cents, 59 cents. We take that 348 plus 59 cents. What's that?
$4.07, and you times that by 12.
So now we got $4.07.
Oh,
Now, that's a little off. It's actually going to be more than that because guess what happens each month?
It goes up.
Here, each month here, if I took the APR, that's a 17% divided by 12. What's 17 divided by 12? 1.4142.
Oh, it's 6 repeating after that.
So 1.42. So that's the percentage that we pay on each one. Don't go away yet. Or each month. The stuff on the homework's not near as hard. Page 286, 1 through 14. It doesn't go into that much detail. Next time it will.